Master. The House will come to order. Please join Representative Ortiz in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Members, please join me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Gregorio, please call the roll.
Representative Zamabile. Bacon. Representative Bacon. Representative Bacon is excused. Baisley. Benavidez. Burnett. Byrd. Bockenfeld. Basenecker. Bradfield. Representative Bradfield. Representative Bradfield is excused. Caraveo. Carver. Catlin. Cutter. Doherty. Duran. Escar.
Here.
Exum.
Morning, sir.
Froelich. Geithner. Gonzalez Gutierrez. Gray. Hanks. Herod. Representative Herod is excused. Holtorf. Hooton. Jackson.
Here.
Judah.
Here.
Kennedy. Kip. Larson. Lontine. Luck. Lynch. McCluskey. McCormick. McKean. Representative McKean. Representative McKean is excused. McLaughlin.
Present.
Michelson Janae. Mullica. Neville.
Here.
Ortiz. Pelton. Pico. Ransom. Rich. Ricks. Roberts. Sandridge. Sirota. Snyder. Soper. Representative Soper. Sullivan. Tipper. Titone. Valdez. Valdez D. Van Beber. Van Winkle.
Here.
Weissman. Will. Williams.
Say here. Here.
Here.
Woodrow. Representative Woodrow. Woog. Young. And Mr. Speaker.
With 62 present, 3 excused, we have a quorum. Representative Ortiz.
Mr. Speaker, I move that the Journal of Thursday, April 29, 2021 be approved as corrected by the Chief Clerk.
You have heard the motion that the journal be approved as corrected by the Chief Clerk. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, no.
Say no.
No.
It's Friday, and gosh, that aye vote really tried hard, but We want to reward that effort. The ayes have it. The motion is approved. Announcements and introductions. Representative Michelson Janae and Representative Woodrow. Members, please direct your attention to the well.
Members, we come to you solemnly today. Today is actually a very joyous Jewish holiday. It's called Lag BaOmer. And from the second day of Passover, we count forward for 49 days, and on the 50th day, we celebrate the deliverance of the Ten Commandments, right, from the mountain. And on the 33rd day, Lamed Gimel BaOmer, 33rd day, we celebrate. And we celebrate because Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai was a great rabbi with many, many followers, and he's most famous for making more accessible Kabbalah. So many of you may have heard of Kabbalah. He died in the 2nd century. And every year on Lag BaOmer, except for last year because of COVID, mostly ultra-Orthodox Jews, but many who are more, I don't know what the word is, observant, but also those, it spans the spectrum. They all join on Mount Hermon, where Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai was buried. Hundreds of thousands of people. Well, last year they didn't do it because of COVID. This year, Israel is in such a positive state because of how it has been delivering its vaccines that they said 10,000 people could celebrate there. And fences were put up. One of the really popular things is you do bonfires. You play with bows and arrows. You spend time outside in nature. The bonfires are for the light and the significance of the Torah, which we are counting down to receiving. Yesterday, not 10,000 people gathered, but over 100,000 people gathered. And at one point, there was a stampede. And because of all of the, potentially because they don't know why, but some of the people who were there are saying the fencing blocked people in. People started to leave because it got too hot and the ground got slippery. You drink a lot of grape juice on this holiday. Probably some people were not drinking grape juice, but you know what I mean. My nephew was there. And he left just before 1 o'clock. And at 1 a.m., the stampede broke out. As of now, we know that 45 people have died, including children. And they were all so grateful to be celebrating. Rabbi Akiva, who was Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai's teacher, also has very much significance on this day, because during this time, there was a time that the community was under a plague. We know what that means. And people stopped dying on the 33rd day of the Omer. And so we celebrate. And today, we also mourn. So I was going to ask if my colleague wanted to say anything before I ask for a moment of silence.
Thank you, Representative. Colleagues, thank you for standing. What should be a joyous occasion today is obviously one that's very upsetting. All of us under this dome have different faiths and different degrees of faith within our different denominations and beliefs. But what we can all agree on is that everyone should have the ability to join together safely to worship and to express their beliefs. And it's just so sad when that turns dangerous and unsafe. And so we ask for a moment of silence.
Moment of silence is granted.
Thank you, members. I'm going to say the prayer for the dead as we mourn those who have passed, and there are hundreds in the hospital that we hope will come home healthy. Yikadal v'yitkadash shmei Rabbah, v'yalma divrei chirutei v'yamlich malchutei, b'chayeichanu v'yomeichanu v'chayei dechol Beit Yisrael, b'gala b'gala uvizman kariv v'yimeru.
Amen.
Yehi shmei Rabbah mevarach, li'olam u'li'olmei olmaya, yitbarach, yitbarach v'yishtabach, v'yitbar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar v'yitalev v'yitalal, shmei dekudesha brichu, li'elam bin kol berchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechemata, damiran v'yalma v'yimeru. Amen.
Thank you, members. Further announcements and introductions. Representative Soper. And Representative Rich.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I hate to follow that, but we have a completely different announcement. That's that we want to congratulate John Marshall of Colorado Mesa University. He's been their vice president and has now been named unanimously president of Colorado Mesa University. And it's very appropriate that the news came out yesterday, just in time for decision day today for colleges and universities. And he's one that I think will do incredibly well for the students there. He's been incredibly popular with the students, but also came up through the ranks. So it's kind of cool to have a homegrown maverick, as it were.
Representative Rich.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I've known John Marshall probably longer than Representative Soper, and he would probably give our speaker a run for the money in height, because I think he's even taller than our current speaker. But he's a wonderful man. He always, it sounds weird for me to say that he would shadow our current president, Tim Foster, but he did, and he's going to do great things, and we would like to congratulate him.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
That's great. Congratulations to Mr. Marshall. And if he comes down to the House of Representatives to lobby, we'll stand back to back. Further announcements and introductions. Representative Hanks, and then I'll come to you, Representative McLaughlin, next. This is tribute. We have a
Good morning, Mr. Speaker. Have a very brief tribute we ask to be read at length.
State of Colorado, the House of Representatives convened in the 73rd General Assembly hereby extends sincere commendations to the Canyon City Blossom Festival. The members of the Colorado House of Representatives expressed support for the Canyon City Blossom Festival. The first Blossom Day was celebrated in May of 1908, when an area resident hosted a fete and decorated his home with thousands of fruit blossoms and flowers. Since then, the festival has expanded to encompass a parade, blossom royalty pageant, marching band competition, several parks filled with vendors, live music, and open storefronts. The Blossom Festival serves as Canyon City's longest and best attended event in the city's history, bringing in well over 10,000 participants, and the members of the Colorado House of Representatives are proud to recognize this beautiful and important event for the Southern Colorado community. On request of Representatives Stephanie Luck and Ron Hanks, given this 30th day of April, 2021, State Capitol, Denver.
Representative Hanks.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. So the Blossom Festival is tomorrow. Courtesy of Representative Luck and her family, everybody got a blossom on their desk, so thank you for that, Representative Luck. The event is brief, and when you're done with the Blossom Day Parade in Canyon City, there's a lot more to do, and a few recommendations. If you're going to take your kids down there, take them after the Blossom Day Parade to the Royal Gorge Bridge, which has nice wood planking 1,000 feet over the Arkansas River. It's not for flatlanders, but it's fun to take flatlanders there. You can look down at the Arkansas River and the Class 4 rapids. You could be rafting. And last thing I guess I'll mention is Skyline Drive. If you're taking your kids to Blossom Day, drive Skyline Drive. That's got some real nice dinosaur footprints you can take a look at, and there's good dinosaur museums out there too. So every kid loves going through Canyon City that I've taken there. So up to you.
Representative Luck.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And for those of you who this is too late of notice because it is tomorrow, know that Canyon City has festivals throughout the summer. One of my favorites is the Whitewater Rafting Festival, where we bring in all sorts of different folks who raft in kayaks and true rafts, and there's competitions. The best competition, if I can, be so bold as to suggest this, is the Rubber Ducky Derby. And so you can buy a rubber ducky. All of the proceeds go to the nonprofits in our area, and we release them into the river, and we see which one wins, and we do make sure to get them all back out of the river because, rubber duckies, they can't survive in the wild. They have to be well cared for in homes. So please do join us tomorrow, and if not, then throughout the summer. Thank you.
Thank you, members. Representative D. Valdez and then Representative McLaughlin.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you, Representative Hanks and Representative Luck, for bringing this tribute forward, because Apple Blossom Festival is a great thing for Canyon City on the Arkansas River. And if you've ever been there, I'll tell you one thing. Not only helping out the agricultural, but those who are in the fruits and vegetables, because that is a huge aspect moving forward. And while you're there, and if you enjoy wine, go to the Holy Cross Abbey. They have a great festival going on there, too. Thank you for bringing the tribute, representatives.
Representative McLaughlin.
Thank you. So, everyone, thank you, Mr. Speaker. In Colorado, we honor the opportunities of all pathways, whether students attend a university, community college, private occupational school, apprenticeship, or serve in the military. That is why this year we are celebrating Decision Day today. I hope all of you wore something that, look at Escar over here. She's amazing to me. And I just want to in particular mention that Western Colorado University and Fort Lewis College are two of the three rural four-year colleges, and I get to represent both of them in my district. The COVID pandemic has raised a lot of uncertainty for many students who are unsure of what options to choose after high school. Some may be considering taking a gap year or taking a job right after graduation. We want to encourage students to stay the course. Your choice for a post-secondary education is a vital one. The Colorado Talent Pipeline Report identifies that 88% of top-tier jobs require a credential beyond high school. Considering just over 57% of high school students go on to college, we need to work together to encourage all our students to pick a path, stay the course, and complete their post-secondary education, whatever that could look like. High school seniors have spent the last several months researching options, applying to programs, and filling out their FAFSA and CASFA, which are never much fun. Decision Day celebrates their hard work and recognizes the achievements of all students. Today, we join the Colorado Department of Higher Education to celebrate Colorado's high school graduating class of 2021. Please give them a round of applause. We wish you luck on your journey wherever that may take you. Thank you.
Yeah, and thanks, Representative McLaughlin. And I think members have gathered in the well who are wearing their gear. And that's Representative Michelson Janae, and Representative Tatone, Representative Cutter, Representative Young, Representative Froelich, Representative Burnett, our Assistant Majority Leader, Gonzalez Gutierrez. All right, a lot of CSU gear.
So I'm very excited this year because I get to wear my first CSU mom shirt. Yay. So now I am a mom of a CSU student, a graduate of the University of Denver and Stern College for Women. Oh, and faculty of Metropolitan State University of Denver.
I've gone to State University of New York at New Paltz, Stony Brook University, and University of Denver.
I went to CU, go Buffs, and graduated from MSU. My kids are Pioneers and also Buffs, so yay, happy Decision Day.
Go UNC Bears.
Okay, CSU Rams, I said I'm proud to be a CSU Ram. I said I'm proud to be
a CSU Ram! And shout out to Colorado Mountain College, the best and most affordable college in the West.
Harvard University and Cornell, but I have a CU buffs in working through CU right now. So.
From the low country or flatlands, roll wave, TU. Anyone come to New Orleans, it's a life changer.
All right, I'm not sure that everyone has to talk about where they went to school, but maybe we can conclude with Representative Lynch because it's the majority leader's not here, but I can say, luckily today and today only, that fits in our attire here on the floor. Representative Lynch.
Mr. Speaker, I was going to ask for a point of. I'm not sure what you asked for to wear a hat on the floor, but can I have some grace today? I will let you know there's a name for this, and we'll talk about this off the record. That the Democrats should really like this hat, and we'll have that conversation later. But while all of you are at fraternity parties, hanging out with like a more co-ed environment that I suffered through. I was. People ask me if I went to college, and I say, well, not really. I'll leave that to other folks. But I've let you know I've got the official tie on, cufflinks, tie tack, and just to kind of steal this moment of attention, the military academies are often criticized because it's a free education. Thank you very much for paying your taxes. And but what comes out of there and what really epitomizes everything that I believe that we're trying to accomplish in our society with equity, diversity, and inclusion is the military experience truly does weave together all areas and all fabrics of our society. And this educational experience is not based upon who can afford it. It's not based upon who's comes from a certain family. It really doesn't. You will see people that have never experienced that sort of educational experience, or they never would have been able to because their family couldn't afford it. And I was very blessed to come from a family that told me, if you want to go to college, figure it out. And that's what I did. And it took a number of years. I didn't get there out of high school, but it's an institution that all of these institutions, and we're very glad to have one of those here in our state with the Air Force Academy, which should usually lose to Army football, just for the record. It really does. It really is the ultimate embrace of equity, if you want to talk about equity, because it really does allow kids of no means to suddenly be propelled into an environment that's very good. So that being said, beat Navy.
All right. I appreciate that. Now, Representative Larson, are we going to... Oh, man. All right. Everyone has to come down and talk about where they went to school.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Representative Larson.
It is an honor to serve with you. So, members, of course I have to come down, and sadly, with Representative Arndt leaving us, Colorado College is down to one illustrious member in this body. But I do have good news. We are joined today by the incoming president of the Colorado College Alumni Association. We're actually joined by most days. That would be Ed Bowditch, and many of the illustrious members on the other side of the glass are CC alumni. So CC is always with us, and go Tigers.
Representative Soper.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I just wanted to say go Mavs. It's where my undergrad was. But you'll be happy to know I briefly lived in an in-holding on the University of Denver's campus before going to the University of Edinburgh, so I have to say go Edinburgh. And then also have to say go Wildcats for the University of New Hampshire.
Representative Bockenfeld.
It's an honor to serve with you, Mr. Chairman.
Honor to serve with you.
Speaker,
Representative
Chair.
Bockenfeld.
Mr. Speaker, thank you. Western Illinois University Leathernecks, right here. CU Graduate School of Banking. But I want to talk about WIU. There's some very distinguished, important people that come from WIU. First one being Burl Ives. All right, some of you older folks know who Burl Ives is. How about Red Miller, the former Denver Broncos coach? How about Bob Nardelli, CEO of Home Depot? And I know this is a political group, and this person and I graduated the same year in 1978. Mary Matlin. She married James Carville. Okay, thank you very much.
Mr. Minority Leader McKean.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. So back to Senator now Hansen, who used to say, well, you know, maybe he just couldn't hold a job. So let's start out with the University of Iowa Hawkeyes, University of Missouri, Kansas City, the Purple Kangaroos, the University of Missouri, Rolla, the Marching Miners, New Mexico State University, the Aggies, and then Colorado State University. But I still say one of the best schools that I know of, the United States Coast Guard Academy.
All right, come on down. Representative Van Beber.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's an honor to serve with you.
It is an honor to serve with you, Representative Van Beber.
I appreciate that pregnant pause. All right, so I would be remiss if I didn't talk about the UNC Bears, University of Northern Colorado. Go Bears! So there's my toot to my university up there in Greeley, Colorado, as well as Ames Community College, a lesser but no less finer college in Greeley, Colorado.
All right, very good. And I believe Representative Neville is taking a 21C from these announcements and introductions since he's currently in college. So, and I got permission to make that announcement. Representative Gray.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. One of the casualties of the pandemic that we've experienced is that normally this time of year is about the time that we are working into the evening, and I've enjoyed, to a certain extent, snaking my way into the chair to be able to announce things with respect to the NFL draft, and didn't get the opportunity yesterday because we were all at home. So I wanted to take a moment to welcome Mr. Patrick Surtain to the Broncos, but also take a more serious moment to speak to Mr. Aaron Rodgers of Wisconsin and say that if he is interested in coming, that the Colorado House of Representatives would very much welcome him if he would come along. We can get a tribute. We can get a resolution. It doesn't matter. I'll talk to our JBC members. We'll figure it out. But Mr. Rodgers, if you are interested in coming to town, we very much welcome having you. Thank you very much.
That's a very important announcement, Representative Gray, and I appreciate you doing that. I hope Aaron Rodgers is listening right now. And I think a joint resolution and a governor proclamation makes sense. All right. Now, before we move on, I do want to say that yesterday we missed something. So if the Capitol Choir could come down into the well. Yesterday was Representative Sandridge's birthday. And I was informed by a few of my colleagues, and so if we could sing Representative Sandridge happy birthday, I think that would be a very appropriate thing to do on this Friday.
Ready? 1.
For my mom.
Okay.
For my mom.
3, 2, 1. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, Representative Sandridge. Happy birthday to you.
Say happy birthday. Say happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
All right. Happy birthday, even if it's belated. All right. See no further announcements and introductions. Assistant Majority Leader Gonzalez Gutierrez.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move that we proceed out of order for consideration of the Conference Committee report on Senate Bill 205.
And before we get there, let's do reports of the conference, or let's do conference committee reports. Mr. Gregorio.
First report of the First Conference Committee on Senate Bill 21-205.
Conference committee reports will be printed in the journal. Okay. We will then, seeing you had heard the motion to proceed out of order, seeing no objection, we will proceed out of order for immediate consideration of Conference Committee report on Senate Bill 205. Representative McCluskey.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move for the adoption of the first report of the first Conference Committee on Senate Bill 205.
Thank you. Representative Ransom.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And folks, you'll see that the report is on your desk. We just finished it last night, but I want to let you know that we did a lot of work as the conference committee. The 6 of us met. We considered all of the amendments that were passed in both chambers. We also considered all of the amendments that passed. So just so you know, we looked hard and recognized that this was our last chance to tweak the budget before we start working on supplementals next year. But with that, I want to let you know that some of the amendments that passed in both chambers were added, as is traditional. Some were not added. And please look at the report itself. You can see what was added and what was not. But I will mention that some of what was not added that was passed in both chambers, you will see in federal stimulus money that we should be seeing as soon as we see it, as soon as all of the guidelines and guidance is actually finalized and forwarded to the states for us to put into motion. So please recognize that not every amendment that was passed in both chambers is fully addressed in this conference committee report. You might remember that we also were given authority to go outside the scope, and there were some on the long bill, and there were several issues that actually came up after that, and one of which I know our JBC staff and Representative McCluskey and I will always sing the praises of our hardworking JBC staff. They actually need to hire somebody new, so I know that was one of the points outside the scope that we did add, was the funding for an additional analyst on the JBC staff. So, but again, the person that's leaving, that only came up within the last week or so. So I want to let you know that we did go outside the scope, and if you look at the conference committee report, you will actually be able to see what those points were. So with that, I actually urge you to vote aye on the conference committee report, because we did try hard to reach out and address the needs of both chambers.
Thank you, Representative Ransom. Representative McCluskey.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to start by thanking our amazing JBC staff, my colleagues, particularly Representative Ransom, who stands with me here today, because I think it's important for everyone to note how much we value our bipartisan collaboration, not only through the long bill process, but also through this conference committee process. I am truly proud of the work that we did with this, and want to thank all of you for helping raise up those priorities that we may not have recognized through the long bill process, but certainly consider of value to this body as well as to the people that we serve. A couple of the celebrations that we want to point out: we are retaining the $10 million to special education, reducing what we have in our state education fund, but that will be an ongoing $10 million investment in special education students. We are retaining the $2 million investment to hire more navigators for the SSI, SSDI application process. We have retained the vendor study for safe and affordable credit for the Consumer Credit Union. We are adding bodies to help with the really surprising increase in claims in the Civil Rights Division. We are adding an equity officer at the Department of Higher Education, and we are restoring the $1 million that had been taken last year from our Tony Gramscis Fund, both with general fund dollars, but also with Tobacco Master Settlement dollars, an increase that we're seeing there. We did also apply funding, not exactly in the entirety of the amendments you brought to us, but I think in trying to be responsible and thoughtful not only about the federal stimulus money we know is coming, but also that $800 million set aside of state stimulus money, hoping to use that for some of these other efforts. We put $1.1 million for next year to the gray wolf reintroduction in the state. There was a $5 million ask, and we're doing 1 year of that next year and hope to hear from the department on their future and additional needs. We did put additional money into ESPERT training grant program. While there had been a fairly significant ask for that, the department had recommended that we completely eliminate funding in that grant program. We kept it at the rate that it is and added an additional $250,000. We did add another $1 million to the body-worn camera grant program on top of the 3 that the JBC had already put aside. We restored $1 million to the school bullying program in the Department of Education, as well as the Accelerated College Opportunity Exam Fee Grant Program. We put $250,000 to suicide prevention, $100,000 to DPA for the completion of the disparity study, and we had a bit of an emergency at Adams State and Plackey Hall and have amped up and added additional funds for the completion of their HVAC project that was underway. I want to just close by again thanking our JBC staff, thank all of you for your partnership, and once again encourage you to get involved in the budget making process. That starts for us in the summer. That really gets ramped up when the governor delivers his budget in November. We welcome your input and your voice in the process. So please join us in next year's journey, but again, thank you, and we urge your support of this year's conference committee report.
Further discussion. Representative Byrd.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And members, I just want to personally come and thank our JBC members. They had an incredibly difficult task. We have diverse needs and interests throughout our state, and somehow through all of this and in the waning days, we hope, of a pandemic, found a way to thread the needle and really make meaningful change and meaningful investment in so many critical priorities. As a member who participated in the budget amendment process, I want my colleagues to know I fully support the decisions that were made by our JBC and think they did an admirable job. I too urge a yes vote.
Further discussion on this motion. Representative Holtorf.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, esteemed colleagues. I have objection this morning as I look at the conference committee report and a summary. For rural Colorado, I have a strong objection. Last year, in June, we passed in this chamber sweeping law enforcement reform. We put a significant burden on law enforcement, which in turn had a significant financial and fiscal consequence. I think in politics they call it an unfunded mandate. So we made these mandates and then we didn't fund them. And then this year we came back and we asked and we discussed about funding and providing funding for these sweeping reforms. Now, the one I'm speaking of is line 22 in the summary that I'm looking at. Senate Amendment 22, which was additional funding and a full proposed amount of $3 million on the worn body camera grant program. But for some reason, the JBC didn't feel they needed the full funding. Well, I'll tell you what. We sure needed funding in a lot of other places to the tune of over $10 million. But that particular funding request was denied. Now that troubles me in rural Colorado, as I have small, and many of us have small sheriff's departments that now have to meet this requirement that the state has imposed on them, and we're saying we're not going to help you pay for it. The JBC has made that claim directly, and in my humble opinion, JBC, that's inexcusable. So I'm not proud of all the work that's done because of that lack of consideration for my sheriff's departments in 9 counties in southeastern Colorado that now all have to have body cameras have to maintain the software for the body cameras, have to upgrade and update them, have to store all the video content based on the laws that have been promulgated. Now, what have you done? What have you done, people? Well, you sure haven't taken care of that. And my district is not happy today. They're not. My sheriff's departments are concerned. They're worried. My county commissioners who have to come up with this money in their county budgets wonder, where does it come from? Did you give them relief? The answer is no, you did not. Now, I know it's all about priorities, ladies and gentlemen, but we need to get our priorities right. And JBC, today, with this conference committee report, you have not gotten it right in that area. And my people are not happy in House District 64 and across rural Colorado, not even on the eastern slope, but the western slope. Make no mistake about it, ladies and gentlemen. If you're going to tell people what to do and how to do it, and it costs money, then you better get the checkbook out and start helping them pay for it. Because those unfunded mandates are not okay in rural Colorado. They are not okay. As we sit here in the Gold Dome and promulgate and mandate and direct and do all the things we do from on high. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Further discussion. Mr. Assistant Minority Leader Geithner.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And so, members, I rise because I'm a little frustrated too, like my colleague just said as well. You know, there were two amendments that were adopted, one out of the Senate and then one out of the House, specifically related to the amendment around body-worn cameras. I took the opportunity, I went to El Paso County Sheriff's Department, and I said, hey, what do you project your total program cost is going to be, if it's forecasted, whatever? 1.6 million is what they came back with. That's roughly half of what we have funded this year. We did $3 million in the budget. We attempted to get another $3 million through the amendment, and we only got one. Now, that's just one county. That doesn't account for the rural aspects of Colorado as they try and implement something that was adopted in 2017 last year, which was very much an unfunded mandate. And so that money is going to have to come from those agencies someplace else. Someplace else there will be funding that will be cut within those law enforcement agencies that will take away in order to implement something that we said we told them to do. Members, that's not all right. We talk about a desire to have accountability and the ability to make sure that as our law enforcement agencies are operating, that they're doing things in the correct way. We put something on them and then we don't even fund it. It frustrates me. There was a lot of back and forth in this chamber, specifically during the long bill, just to make sure that we could get to that $6 million total between what was budgeted and what we could amend through. And then we cut it basically by 1/3. So rather than the $6 million, looking at one county that's forecasting $1.6 million, we obligated them to do something. The funding is going to have to come from someplace else within each one of those law enforcement agencies as they try and implement something that we mandated that they do. It's not okay.
Representative Carver.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Well, I wonder if we need a rule change, members. You know, the custom has been, ever since I have been in the legislature, we have been assured that when an amendment to the long bill is passed in both the House and the Senate, it will be honored. The additional $3 million for body cam to help our local police departments meet a mandate that this body passed in 2017, and which, if a bill introduced this year that passed House Judiciary, would shorten the time at which 217 said July 2023. House Bill 1250 which came out of judiciary this year, would cut that compliance date to make it even sooner. We are talking millions of dollars of costs to our local police departments. Members in the Senate and members in the House voted to add an additional $3 million to help our local police departments meet this mandate. And yet, that commitment, that custom, that assurance that if we exercised our will on the budget in both the House and Senate, that would be honored. And yet here we are. I am deeply dismayed by this. You know, what is the practical effect? And I think back to some of the discussions I heard in JBC and various statements made. The practical effect when you do a costly mandate on local departments and then you refuse to fund is that they have to cut their budget, their local budgets in other places in order to meet our mandates. So in fact, what is the practical effect of this? The practical effect is that police departments, county sheriffs, and local police departments for the city will have to cut funding for their other policing operations in order to pay for this mandate at a time of rising crime. Members, I do not understand. I utterly reject this decision. It is wrong. And I ask for a no vote on this conference committee.
Assistant Majority Leader Gonzalez Gutierrez.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm taking this mask off because it's hard to hear me. It's very muffled. I just wanted to clarify a couple of things that I think we've heard down here and talking to some members, because it sounds like there might be a little bit of confusion. And, you know, first of all, I am glad that we're trying to figure out a path forward with regards to this. What I do want to clarify is that the intent in 217 was that, as far as the effective date, was that if you already had body cams, there are some jurisdictions that already have body cams, right? If you already have those body cams, then the mandate was that you would act within the guidelines of 217 around the body cams. If you did not have body cams, you had until 2023 to come into compliance with that mandate. Members, I think there is a misconception about current policy that is moving through the system right now. That policy, we are trying to actually clarify what the intent was in 217, which is exactly what I just said, is that if you do not have body cams, you have until 2023 to come into full compliance. I also just want to point out the fund that was created in 2015 under House Bill 1285 under the Department of Public Safety created a fund that would be given money under gifts, grants, and donations for the very purpose of providing funding for body cams at that time. Since 2015, it is my understanding that there has never been any funds in that grant fund. And I would ask the Department of Public Safety as to why. Why either funds were not sought or they were not able to garner any funds. So that, I think that is a good question. And now here we are putting $4 million into that very grant fund program, where there are additional opportunities to build up those coffers through grants, gifts, and donations. And there are various different organizations and foundations that fund this very thing, that are nationwide. MacArthur Foundation had some funds over the last year. There are many others that I can list off. So members, I hope that everyone hears that we have until 2023. I don't think this is off the table. I think this is an ongoing conversation, and I'm more than happy to have this conversation as we move forward with some of the policies that we're moving forward with. And I ask for support, and I vote on the long bill. Thank you.
All right, members. We are discussing a motion on the conference committee report. I'm giving a little latitude to talk about policies that are not in the motion that are before us, primarily because the conference committee report funds policies that have already been passed, and I think it's appropriate for us to talk about things that are currently moving through the legislative process in relation to this. However, let's just be thoughtful of the motion that's before us. With that, we're going to go to Representative Gray, then McKeon, then Carver.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. There was a budget amendment that I was a sponsor of that passed both houses and wasn't included in this conference report. I want to say that I'm okay with it because I know how hard of a job they're doing, and I can say I'm okay with that without speaking in condescension to the Joint Budget Committee. The Joint Budget Committee can't do everything that all of us want to do. They have a very hard job to do. They didn't choose the thing that I asked for, and I accept it because of how hard a job they're doing. And I would ask, as we have this debate, we recognize that, and we don't take personal umbrage, and we don't speak in condescension of the members who are doing some of the hardest work in this chamber, and I would ask for an aye vote on the conference report.
Minority Leader McKeon.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. So I will tell my JBC folks, Rep. Ransom, Rep. Herod, Rep. McCluskey, thank you for your work. Thank you for your work. The delight of our process is that we get to come back here. And I will share again that, the wonderment in me when I got here and I thought, I'm going to offer all these amendments to the budget and I've got all these great ideas. And then Representative Rankin came up and he goes, who's on the conference committee, right? And I'm like, who? Can I get on that? And he goes, no, it's JBC. Well, yeah, so that's what we've got. I don't take umbrage with where the discussion went. And I appreciate the fact that when we offered an amendment in both houses for $3 million to do what we told people to go do, and we don't have the money, I get it. I completely understand. And when we have to make choices about what we do and how we do it, and when we all have, 100 of us in this building, our own ideas about the things that we want to see funded and we want to see done, I get it. But if I take the conference committee report and I say that we, in both houses, said that we believe in funding the things we told this state to go do. We told some of the people who work the hardest in this state to go do something that is difficult. And I want all of you guys to think about what's difficult. You now have to completely adopt a new technology. You have to take responsibility for that. You have to back it up. You have to do all the things. This is not easy stuff. And we said, you have to go do this. We didn't say you might. We didn't say it's okay if you don't. We said you must go do this. And so when we said that, we didn't give them any money to do it. So this year, both houses said we'd like to add $3 million to the $3 million that already exist. You just heard that in one department alone, the cost is around $1.6 million. So start adding that up over the state and realize the untold millions of dollars that this is going to require. And it cannot, with all deference, be pushed on the back of gifts, grants, and donations. We told these departments to go do something. And so, with no umbrage, but with open eyes to the process, I can tell you that the amendment to add $3 million to this fund was reduced. After a lot of debate and a lot of discussion, it was reduced from $3 million to $1 million. Because we didn't have the money, right? No, not because we didn't have the money. Because if you look elsewhere in this, we reduced the appropriation by $2 million to fund current legislation. Now, I don't sit on JBC. I don't have to do the wrestling match of what it takes to put this budget completely together. But I do know how to read. Mrs. Smith did a really good job teaching me how to read. She also did a really good job teaching me how to add and multiply. And I can tell you that when I see a reduction in the amount for current legislation of $2 million, and I see a reduction in the amount of the amendment that we put on in both houses of $2 million, I would tell you we have the money, and we chose not to do it. I have sat on a city council, I have sat on a school board, and I have sat there and said, how dare they bring down an unfunded mandate to me so that I have to figure out how to pay for it. We just did that again. And it's not fair. It is not fair for us to make a policy decision in this building, in this chamber, and with the other chamber and the governor to say this is what we're going to do, whether we agree with it or not, to do that, send it on its way, and then not do our jobs. Shame on us. This is not fair. Do what's right.
Representative Carver.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And, you know, Assistant Majority Leader Gonzalez Gutierrez, who I have great respect for, you know, pointed out that in 2015, we created a grant program for body cams. And there was no general fund money that was placed. It was gifts, grants, and donations. But respectfully, members, to me, that whole situation changed with the passage of Senate Bill 217, which went from a police practice which was encouraged to a mandate on body cameras, and we want to encourage our police departments to get the body cameras, but now we have mandated. And so in the discussions I have had with CCI and CML, I will tell you that even with the additional $3 million that we voted on in this body and the Senate voted on in their body on 205 to add the money, it is still a very small percentage of what the overall cost is to our police departments around Colorado to do body cams. And that is why it is astounding to me when we have the money, when we have the $50 million available to fund new program. That's what I was told anyway. That we will not meet the commitment and the expectation of the House and the Senate in providing this additional money for something we have mandated. With the result that the police departments must then do what? Reduce their funding of other police operations in their city or county in order to fund this. Now, that is the result of this action, members. Make no mistake. This is a wrong policy decision. It's my understanding this was a 3-3 vote, which is why this amendment, which by right should have been added, based upon what we are told is the process for the budget and how we act on the budget in the House and the Senate, I would ask for a rejection of this conference committee report. Send it back to the JBC and say, we expect the will of the House and the will of the Senate to be honored in providing this additional funding to our police departments. Vote no.
Representative Pico.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Before 217 passed, Colorado Springs implemented the body-worn cameras. We saw that as something that was worthwhile. It was something that made good sense. It's better policing. That's what this body wants, is better policing. But when you hand down a mandate without the funding to do it, you are doing exactly what everyone else has said here. You are costing those agencies, those municipalities, those counties, the money that they would otherwise have in other programs. Colorado Springs rose to that challenge before 217 was passed. Colorado Springs has spent more for body-worn cameras than this body has allocated for the state as a whole. That is a disgrace. And to shove that onto the rest of the state unfunded is an absolute disgrace. In a $34 billion budget, we can't come up with $3 million. Words fail me. Vote no.
Representative Larson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, I rise in strong opposition, and I do want to talk about some of the things that were said down here. My respected colleague from Broomfield was right to point out that the JBC does have a difficult job. But the important thing to remember here, folks, in this body, there are only 3 members of the JBC. There's 65 members of the General Assembly. It means that 62 or 65 members of the House. That means that 62 of these districts did not vote for the members of the JBC. We come up with a committee here, and we expect the JBC to do the bulk of the work when it comes to the budget. But when the 35 members of the Senate and the 65 members of the House each vote in their own respective chambers to add an amendment which they both agree upon, it has been the tradition of this House and this Assembly that those are honored, because that is a reflection of all of the people of Colorado, not simply the constituents of those in the JBC. And for us to come down here and be told that we have to bend to the whim of what the 3 members of this chamber decide.
And Representative Larson, let's be careful of how we characterize a conference committee. Thanks.
Very well. But to be told that we have to come and accept their decision when we all voted, each and every one of us should be outraged down here. All of our constituents have a voice. And I mean no disrespect to the constituents of the members of the JBC, but they are not my constituents, and they are not yours unless you are a member of the JBC. And what the JBC did here is stripped the voice of all of us who said that this is something that we want for our communities.
Let's not impugn the motives of the JBC.
That's simply a statement of the fact, Mr. Speaker, but I respect that. Law enforcement is a tricky issue. It has been a heated debate in this chamber. And we did indeed pass that legislation last year. And body-worn cameras are a good thing. I didn't happen to support the underlying legislation, but my sheriff speaks about how he loves body-worn cameras and how his troopers love body-worn cameras and how this is a good thing. But the fact of the matter is that the mandates that we placed on them are expensive. Many agencies have to buy this hardware. Even the agencies that have the hardware have to make additional expenditures for their data and their collection. And it is something that is definitely worth us prioritizing in our budget, if that is something that is important. And I think it is something that's important. I think this will be a better state if we have law enforcement equipped with body-worn cameras. I think that our police officers will be safer. I think our citizens will be safer. I think it's a good thing. But we cannot say, this is great, departments, you take it out of your budget. I was speaking to my sheriff the other day, and we have 74 positions in Jefferson County that are sitting vacant right now in a time of extreme increase in crime across the board. 74 positions. And we're asking that sheriff's office to spend more money on non-personnel related things when property crime is up, when violent crime is up. And in a year where we have by far more money than we have ever had in the history of our state pouring in from federal sources, we can't find $2 million for a policy that the Senate wants, that the House wants, that our law enforcement needs help implementing, and that I think all of us can agree will make our state a better place. This is ridiculous. And members, we need to reject this conference committee report, if for no other reason, because we need to have the will of all of our constituents and an amendment that was passed by both chambers honored. Please vote no.
Representative Hanks. And then, all right, Assistant Minority Leader Gaynor.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. You know, members, I was just up here and I spoke specifically about one of the law enforcement agencies that I represent, which is El Paso County Sheriff's Office. Probably, you know, the largest county in terms of operations that we have, jail population, all of that. And so those cameras actually not only go to patrol, they go inside everywhere, right? I mean, that's the idea. So 1.6 million. And to know that, and I said a little bit of this before, that we're simply going to say, you know, I think 4 million is enough as a body, as a state, to force upon these agencies this unfunded mandate is highly inappropriate. So with that, I would offer a substitute motion that we adhere to the House position.
That motion is in order. The House will be in a brief recess. Okay. The House will come back to order. The motion before us is to adhere to the House position. Representative McCluskey.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you, members. I certainly want to respect the input and perspective of my colleagues, but ask that you reject the motion to adhere to the House version of our report. It is an important part of our democratic process that we take the time to hear each other. And your Joint Budget Committee did that. We gathered, we looked at all amendments that had passed, and we considered each and every one. While I respect the feelings and the concerns about our body-worn camera grant program, excuse me, I want to make a couple of very significant points. There were $0 in this program prior to this year's budget. This is the first time we have applied general fund monies to this program. I'm proud that we were able to bring $3 million. We did hear the voices of our Senate and our House colleagues, those with both perspectives about whether local government should be funding their body-worn cameras or not. We struck a compromise, heard your voices, and applied an additional $1 million to this program. And I heard from Joint Budget Committee members yesterday that we are committed to watching how these dollars roll out, monitor that need, and since we have until 2023 for full compliance, consider additional funding for this next year. The conference committee report includes far more than this one program. And the consensus and the collaboration that happened through the conference committee to reach this report, these decisions, I believe took into consideration your values, your priorities. Passing this conference committee report, as we have presented today, represents a bipartisan collaborative approach on not only those amendments that came before you as we presented the long bill, but on the long bill itself. This is how we move the state's budget forward. This is how we get funding for so many vital, urgently needed programs off and running. Today is the day we pass the budget. I urge all of you to take a step back, look at the comprehensive work that has gone into the budget, that has gone into this conference committee work, and pass a $34 billion budget that makes a huge difference to the people we serve. Please reject the motion before you now, and I urge you to support the passage of the conference committee report as we have provided to you today. Thank you.
Is there further discussion on the current motion before us? Seeing none, the question before us is to adhere to the House position. Mr. Gregorio, please open the machine, and members, please proceed to vote. For those participating remotely, Majority Leader Escar, how do you vote?
No.
Majority Leader Escar votes no. Representative Jackson, how do you vote?
No.
Representative Jackson votes no. Representative Judah, how do you vote?
No.
Representative Judah votes no. Representative Neville, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Neville votes yes. Representative Exum, how do you vote?
No.
Representative Exum votes no. Representative Van Winkle, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Van Winkle votes yes. Representative Williams, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Williams votes yes. Representative McLaughlin, how do you vote?
No.
Representative McLaughlin votes no. Representative Bacon. Representative Bacon is excused with a $3 fine. Please close the machine. With 24 aye votes, 39 no votes, and 2 excused, the motion to adhere to the House position is lost. We are back to the original motion, which is the adoption of the first conference committee report. Is there further discussion? Representative Hanks.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Sticking with the law enforcement theme, if we might, we have a $34.6 billion budget. We have a $700 million state reserve, might be $800 million that we're using for various functions. With regard to the $2 million that was removed for the body cameras, seems problematic. We know that wasn't enough anyway. Whether or not we have years in the future to take care of this seems kind of short-sighted in my estimation. We ought to be working on it now. But I want to parallel this $2 million unfunded mandate with the Department of Corrections issue that we worked on that is driving a deficit in their operations of law enforcement in the counties, and that is the per diem rate, the daily rate that the prisons get, the county jails get for Department of Correction inmates. Used to be 59, we got it to 80, presumably. And but the least amount that it costs anybody, according to our estimates, is $109 a night to house these inmates. So my point here is that we're digging a real financial hole for our law enforcement in this state in a time with a $34.6 billion budget and an $800 million state reserve. seems like the wrong course to me. We should be refocusing on this and try to, if we're going to mandate them, let's fund them. Thank you.
Okay, I just want to remind everybody that you get to speak twice, and you still get a total of 10 minutes. So Representative Holtorf, Representative Catlin, go ahead. But I just wanted to remind the body.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's an honor to serve with you.
Honor to serve with you as well, Representative Catlin.
Thank you, sir. Members, I'm here to speak about the people that sent me up here. I've got a number of small frontier communities in my district, and I've got some smaller rural communities in my district. They took the time to reach out to me about this amendment. They asked me specifically, will you make sure that this gets put on the budget? So this was something that was important to me. In fact, I was a co-sponsor, put my name on the amendment so that they would know I was doing what I could. Some days it feels like there's not much we can do. Today is one of those. When that amendment passed here in the House, I thought, okay, we've done something. We've done something for them and for the communities that they police and that they protect. We come to work this morning, we find that that's been changed. I've heard arguments this morning about this is traditionally how we've done things, is that if we both voted for it, it would stay on the budget. And that was the impression that I had the night that we worked on the budget. Ladies and gentlemen, this is one of those times where people look at government and say, no wonder I don't trust them. You know, they talk to us, we tell them we will, we show them we will, and we do. And then the next day comes and we have to call them and say, we didn't. I hear that we're going to work on this and that 2023 and these kind of things are out in the wind. We're going to work on this. We did work on this. We all worked on this. It passed. And in a House that's 41 to 24, it passed. That means something. That means something to me. I know it means something to you. So today I have the responsibility of coming down here and saying what I'm saying. That we have to have faith in things. We have to agree that this is how we're going to do it. I understand the pressures that come to bear. I know that I'm not on the inner circle of this to where I'm not sure what pressures brought and what wasn't, but I know sitting out here in that seat, there are pressures brought. This is something that I'm hoping that we won't look at again. You know, the community that raised me got in touch with me and said, we really need this to come through. I said, okay. Told you that before. Because I'm on my way home this afternoon, hopefully. And I'm sure they're going to want to talk to me. I've had numerous calls from my police forces and sheriffs in regards to some future legislation that's coming, and we'll deal with that on a different day. But right now, this is an opportunity for us to say, we are not just driven by the budget, that we're driven by the decisions that we've made, we're driven by the commitments that we made, regardless. Stand up, look at the commitment, say, I did make that commitment, and I will honor it. Today I'm down here to ask you to vote against this conference committee, because we need to be able to say The legislature is run by the legislature, not necessarily by the budget. There's an awful lot of decisions that have been made in that budget that you may agree with, that you may not agree with. But yet, we got the opportunity to make our mind up on a lot of those items. We need to hang on to the authority that we do have. And today is the day that you can do that. I'm asking for a no vote on the conference committee.
Representative Holtorf.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to echo the words of my esteemed colleague, Representative Catlin. You see, the chambers represent the people. You all represent the people. The Joint Budget Committee should be working for us in our chambers and listening and answering to us who represent the people. And when we vote unanimously in this chamber and the Senate votes unanimously in their chamber, that is the will of the people. JBC, meet that will and intent. We are awash with extra money this year in the budget. Hundreds of millions of dollars and more. Yet priorities get askewed by certain policy decisions made, perhaps by individual legislators, perhaps by others. I do not know. But the will of the people is not represented today. So I encourage a no vote on this, and I want to see the culture change. JBC, you need to work for us. We shouldn't have to mother may I. We shouldn't have to go forth and beg and plead.
Representative Holtorf, let's be careful how we address our colleagues on JBC.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And our colleagues on JBC ought to carry a lot of wasta in that committee to say, no, our people have spoken. 65 in this chamber have spoken, and we demand that they be heard. Well, I know it wasn't unanimous. I'm talking in general terms. I understand that. But the majority spoke, colleagues. The majority, not unanimous. I understand that, and thank you for that point. It is important. But when that majority speaks, JBC, you are obligated to listen and support what is the will of the people. Now, I will tell you, my House district is going to be very disappointed in what we do today if we don't vote no on this and send this back and say, JBC, meet our will. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you for your attention.
Representative Rich.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Before I say anything, I do want to thank the JBC members. I know that this has got to be a tough job. When I talk to our committee member, I feel bad for her sometimes, but I just want to say something here on why I can't support this conference committee. Having worked in local government for 16 years, and back when I was the county clerk, it seemed like the legislature was changing the election laws every few minutes, and they were unfunded mandates, and we were having to scramble, literally scramble, to make everything that the legislature wanted work. Now, I understand that this is not, it doesn't go into effect until 2023, but it takes time for our law enforcement to know, is the money going to be there, if they can make those plans, and they also need training on all of this. So you can say that that's 2 years out, but they need to know that the money is going to be there, and it's just not fair. We're seeing lots of bills now where there's millions and millions of dollars being spent on other things, and we're asking that it just be changed back from $4 million to $6 million. We're not asking for the moon. And so I'm asking that you vote no on this conference committee.
All right, Minority Leader McKeon, this is your second time.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. So I would like to be exceedingly clear. I appreciate your work. I don't just appreciate your work, I appreciate the amount that I know that Rep. McCluskey, you and the other members of JBC struggled, and how much work goes into balancing the pieces. I would like this body to remember how this occurred. We were in the middle of a long debate on the budget. And there were a lot of amendments offered, and there were a lot of ideas, and to be very honest, we have, I believe other members in this body say, the budget is political theater, because the numbers really don't change, do they? The numbers are the numbers. And so a lot of the amendments we talk about are somewhat lofty ideas about if we only had the money we could do this, or if we only could change the priorities that have been managed and wrestled with, and the giant Rubik's Cube of the budget having been managed for so many months. If we could only just turn back those hands of time, what will we do? This particular amendment that got on in the Senate and came over here and was offered here in the House was lost on a voice vote. That means that as we offered that amendment and that amendment was lost, the issue died. But such is our desire to make sure that we tell the state, meaning through the dollars that we spend, to do what we said people had to do. We didn't leave it lie there. We brought it back on a cow. We have a brand new member here. And I will tell the representative from Fort Collins that one of the weirdest things in this chamber has ever been is when I found out what a cow is. But literally the cow comes back and says what happened didn't happen, what actually happened was this. And so we brought that amendment back on a cow vote. And that cow vote passed. That's kind of a big deal, folks. That's kind of a big deal when we talk about what the will of this body is. And again, back to my consideration for our folks on JBC, I think they did hear us, right? We got $1 million. It was not nothing. It was not turned away and spurned. It was $1 million. We were asking for $3 million to go along with the $3 million in the budget, which again is a drop in the bucket of what departments need. And so with a tremendous amount of gratitude that it didn't just disappear, I would also say stop and consider the enormity of the process. Because often when amendments that lose on a voice vote, sometimes they're just the minority amendments. And so they lose on a voice vote because that's just the way it is when you're 24 to 41. But that cow passed. That means that when we brought that amendment back, it passed. And that meant that members of the majority said, you know what, that is actually a really good idea, and it is something we ought to do, and we ought to keep our word. So when we come back to this moment now and we say, okay, we sent off to the conference committee, we got the report back from the conference committee, and something short of what we asked for happened. I think I asked for a 3-speed bike for most of my childhood, and I didn't always get it, and I was okay with that because, you know what, I got some other stuff, except for 1981, and that was a really hard year, and all I got was a cigarette box, but that's another story for another time. But in this instance, we asked for something, and we doubled down on saying we really want it because it's right, and it's fair. And so with tremendous deference to my JBC friends and colleagues, I think the hard work was done, but I think that we come back to that moment again now. And we say, did we mean it? I meant it. I meant it. I meant that if we tell people they have to go do something, we ought to give them the tools to do it. That's our job. I'm a no. I'm a no on this conference committee report because I think we did our job right the first time.
Is there further discussion? Representative Luck.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's been said that running into debt isn't nearly as bad as running into your creditors. I think my caucus colleagues are demonstrating the passion of having to run regularly into the state's creditors as they go out into their districts and hear the feedback of folks who are being told what to do but not being given the resources to do it. It's a particularly impassioned conversation, one that I suspect the majority caucus also experiences in their day-to-day out in the community conversations. Throughout the conversation around the Long Bill, we heard that there was not sustainable funding sources for particular priorities that we have identified. That's concerning to me. It's concerning to me that we have a number of creditors out there that we are not paying or paying adequately. And yet, we have in this report put aside $48 million in anticipation of having more creditors added to our list. It's also been said that you are only poor when you want more than you have. As a dreamer, which I am, I can understand wanting more than you have. And all of us need to have a bit of dreamer in us to do this job and to think through these problems and to find solutions. But we also need to be realists. We also need to be ones who are grounded. And so I would suggest that this go back to conference committee, and that $48 million that has been set aside for future dreams to create future creditors be allocated to those priorities we have already said we care about. Make sure those funds are done and out, and those creditors are crossed off the list, so that when we are out in the community, we no longer run into creditors who are impassioned. Thank you.
Representative McCluskey.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Again, I want to thank my colleagues for sharing their voice on our conference committee report. And I want them to know that I, too, am listening to my district, have heard my constituents on this issue. It is why, back in September and October, I went to the Department of Public Safety and asked about this program and what could we do to help better fund and support local governments in purchasing body-worn cameras. I am still so pleased that we have money in this program for the first time ever, and pleased that we increased it from the $3 million proposed in the Long Bill to $4 million. I want to share with my colleagues, to everyone in this room, that we are open to considering and working with you on increasing funding for this program through legislation that is already in the pipeline this session, and ask and encourage you to now take a step back, look at our conference committee report, the great new money we are putting to so many other priorities of this state. Help us get the Long Bill closed and passed today. Help us reassure Coloradans that we have all priorities in mind and that we are committed to making sure that we are taking care of this state in the best and most fiscally responsible way possible. I want to thank everyone for the dialogue today, for the conversation today, and promise you that we will continue this conversation after we close the Long Bill. Thank you again for your support of the conference committee report.
Thank you, Representative McCluskey. Representative Sandridge.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and Representative McCluskey. And I just want to narrow down your last comment so I can fully understand. Are you willing to introduce legislation this session to fund the $2 million? It's just a simple yes or no. Thank you.
And just so folks know, because Representative McCluskey is the sponsor, she can speak unlimited amounts of time, though she still only has 10 minutes. Representative McCluskey.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My answer is I believe there is legislation already in this session that could be considered for carrying additional funding for the body-worn camera grant program. And I am happy to talk with bill sponsors and other members of this chamber on considering this conversation in that legislation.
Representative Sandridge.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And obviously, we don't know how legislation will turn out at the very end. But just to confirm, you will add the $2 million to this piece of legislation for us to actually debate that piece. Thank you.
Is there any further discussion on the motion that's before us? Seeing none. The question that's before us, let me get my script, is the adoption of the conference committee report on Senate Bill 205. Seeing no further discussion, Mr. Gregorio, please open the machine, and members, please proceed to vote. Those participating remotely, Majority Leader Escar.
Yes.
Majority Leader Escar votes yes. Representative Jackson.
Yes.
Representative Jackson votes yes. Representative Judah.
Yes.
Representative Judah votes yes. Representative Neville.
No.
Representative Neville votes no. Representative Van Winkle.
No.
Representative Van Winkle votes no. Representative Exum.
Yes.
Representative Exum votes yes. Representative Williams.
No.
Representative Williams votes no. Representative Bradfield. Please close the machine. That's a $1 fine, Representative Bradfield. With 39 aye votes, 24 no votes, and 2 excused, the conference committee report is adopted. Assistant Majority Leader Gonzalez Gutierrez.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move for the repassage of Senate Bill 205 as amended by the conference committee report.
The motion before us is the repassage of Senate Bill 205 as amended by the conference committee report. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, Mr. Gregorio, please open the machine, and members, please proceed to vote. Majority Leader Escar, how do you vote?
Yes.
Majority Leader Escar votes yes. Representative Jackson, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Jackson votes yes. Representative Judah, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Judah votes yes. Representative Neville, how do you vote?
No.
Representative Neville votes no. Representative Van Winkle, how do you vote?
No.
Representative Van Winkle votes no. Representative Exum, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Exum votes yes. Representative Williams, how do you vote?
No.
Representative Williams votes no. Please close the machine. With 39 aye votes, 24 no votes, and 2 excused, Senate Bill 205 is repassed as amended. Co-sponsors. Co-sponsors, please close the machine. The next order of business on the calendar is General Order second reading of bills. Representative Roberts. You have heard the motion. Seeing no objection, Representative Roberts will take the chair. The committee will come to order. With your unanimous consent, the bills will be read by title unless there is a request for reading a bill at length. Committee reports are printed and in your bill folders. Floor amendments will be shown on the screen and on your iPads, and bills will be laid over upon motion of the Assistant Majority Leader. And happy Friday. The coat rule is relaxed. Mr. Gregorio, please read the title of House Bill 1237.
House Bill 1237 by Representatives Lantin and Rich, also Senators Kirkmeyer and Moreno, concerning the creation of a competitive pharmacy benefits manager marketplace.
Representative Rich.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move House Bill 1237 and the committee report of Health and Insurance.
To the committee report from Health and Insurance.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have an amendment to the report of the Health and Insurance and ask that it be displayed.
Can you move the amendment, please, Representative Rich?
Yes, Mr. Chair. I move L007.
L007 has been moved and is displayed to the amendment. Representative Rich.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This amendment makes 3 changes to the bill that came out of committee. First, it makes clear that the Department of Personnel, not the technology vendor, has to ensure that the vendor meets the technical criteria required to conduct the reverse auction. Second, it addresses a concern that Representative Baisley raised in committee and gives the department the ability to update security standards as technology changes over time. And finally, and most importantly, the amendment makes clear that the department doesn't need to contract with a new PBM through the reverse auction process unless it verifies that the new PBM contract will result in a lower cost to the state plan. I ask for an aye vote.
Is there any further discussion on L007? Representative Soper.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Representative Rich and Representative Lantin. I was a no vote in committee on the bill, but excuse me. With this amendment, I'll definitely be a yes vote and rise in full support, and I'm really glad that you're bringing this. I think it's important with the elements that the amendment does, particularly that if the reverse auction doesn't result in a cost savings, that we won't go down that path or that we won't go there, is very, very important. Because if we're going to change our system for how we're going to do business for PBMs for the state, it is really important that it actually results in a cost savings for the state. So that was a really big deal for me. And with this amendment, I'm going to be a yes vote, and I'm very pleased to come down here and say that as well. So thank you.
Representative Baisley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, this bill generally came in as a really smart idea with some concern areas that arrived with it, like most of the conversations that we have here. And this amendment truly addresses the concerns that we were all thinking when our colleagues presented this bill in the first place. Really appreciate the hard work, your openness to that, and to our input. So I would also urge a yes vote on this amendment. Thank you.
Is there any further discussion on Amendment L007? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of L007 to the committee report. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. The ayes have it. L007 is passed. To the committee report, Representative Lantin.
I thought we were to the bill.
I think we need to adopt the committee report now.
I'm sorry. You're
Any
right.
further discussion on the committee report? Representative Rich.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. When we were in committee, the amendment that we offered in committee and that we just amended, it explicitly ensures that the state's current procurement code rules apply to the bill, and it moves the deadlines and aligns with the Department of Personnel Administration's fiscal year to allow the department more time to complete the reverse auction, and aligns the date with the expiration date of the incumbent PBM's contract. I ask for an aye vote.
Any further discussion on the Health and Insurance Committee report? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of the Health and Insurance Committee report as amended. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The committee report passes. To the bill, Representative Lantin.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I appreciate your patience and apologize for my confusion earlier. Members, how many people here know what a PBM is? Yay! For those of you who didn't raise your hand, PBM is an acronym for Pharmacy Benefit Managers, and our state plan that covers our benefits as state employees, we have a PBM. And this bill introduces a dynamic competition for the state PBM bidding process, deploying cutting-edge technology to enable apples-to-apples comparison of the cost to the state of each PBM's pricing proposal. This policy has proven to be incredibly successful, and several states have enacted several laws, New Jersey being the first, which implemented the program in 2017 and has seen billions in savings for that state in prescription drug costs. We don't anticipate that we're going to save billions, folks, but we anticipate that we will save between 7 and 10 million per year on this benefit to state employees. And for Colorado, that's a big deal. This is a great bill, and I ask for your aye vote.
Representative Rich.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I want to thank Representative Lontine. She laid that out perfectly, and I'm asking for an aye vote as well. Thank you.
Is there any further discussion on House Bill 1237? Representative Baisley.
I have another bill up after this, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So the bill is just a good way of us as a consumer, meaning us being the state of Colorado, being a consumer of services and instituting a competitive process for achieving those services. So in that, this is a great idea. My only caution, I just worth mentioning, I want to get on the record, the hiccup that this causes, and it's kind of inevitable, but it causes a hiccup in the current contract that we have with the PBM. But the sponsors worked that with the folks that currently have that contract, and I think everybody's pretty well settled now. But anyway, so I appreciate y'all's work on that as well. And did you like that, y'all? That's from your childhood, y'all. So I recall. Mine too. Anyway, so I would urge a yes vote on this bill. Thank you.
Any further discussion on House Bill 1237? Seeing none, the question before us is the passage of House Bill 1237. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. House Bill 1237 passes. Mr. Gregorio, please read the title of House Bill 1267.
1267 by Representatives Lontine and Larson, also Senator Heisey, concerning the Board of County Commissioners' optional delegation of the administrative duty to certify mill levies.
Representative Larson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, members. Today we have a bill. This was brought to us. Oh, my apologies. I move House Bill 1264 and the committee report. Or there was no.
I'll give you one other try at that.
All right,
Representative
thank
Larson.
you for the gimme. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move House Bill 1267.
To the bill, Representative Larson.
Perfect. Thank you. My apologies. So, members, here is a bill that is brought to us by our counties, and it's a simple bill, frankly, just a government efficiency bill. So, under current law, county commissions are required to hold a public meeting and hearing to certify the mill levy rates every year for the county. However, these mill levies, they have no authority to change these mill levies. It's simply a collection of the special taxing districts within the county's jurisdiction. In some cases, as in my county of Jefferson, there are over 200 of these individual taxing districts. They all submit these individual mill levies that they have all set at their local levels. And the county, as currently composed, is required to have a meeting, and the Board of County Commissioners is required to have a vote on whether or not to accept the mill levy. If they vote yes, then everything moves forward and is ratified. If they vote no, nothing changes because the counties do not have the authority to change the mill levy rates. What our bill here does is it gives counties the option, should they want to delegate the certification of those mill levy rates to staff and then have the county commission sign off on it. But it removes the requirement to hold a separate hearing to do this certification. So this saves time. This is very efficient. There has not been, to my knowledge, in several decades, a case of a county not certifying the local mill levy rates. So this is really just an efficiency bill, and with that, I will hand it off to my illustrious co-prime.
Representative Lontine.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This bipartisan bill provides local control, flexibility, and efficiency, and we ask for your support.
Is there any further discussion on House Bill 1267? Seeing none, the question before us is the passage of House Bill 1267. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. House Bill 1267 passes. Assistant Majority Leader Gonzalez Gutierrez.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move to lay over Senate Bill 226 until Monday, May 3rd.
Seeing no objection, the Senate Bill 226 will be laid over till Monday, May 3rd at the request of the Assistant Majority Leader. Mr. Gregorio, please read the title to Senate Bill 143.
Senate Bill 143 by Senator Gardner, also Representatives Tipper and Snyder, concerning the Uniform Collaborative Law Act.
Representative Tipper.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, members. The Uniform Collaborative Law Act is actually a law that, or a bill that we passed out of this chamber last year. So I move Senate Bill 143, and essentially what the bill does is it creates this additional way for parties to settle disputes. So folks are probably familiar with mediation and arbitration, and there's of course litigation, but collaborative law is an entirely different process. And the premise is if people have to maintain relationships after this particular disagreement, there's a different way to go about things rather than this combative, litigious process. And collaborative law does that. So the bill is narrowed to family and domestic relations. It came out of judiciary unanimously. My gratitude to Senator Gardner for his sponsorship in the Senate, and I ask for a yes vote.
Representative Snyder.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, Representative Tipper really covered this great, but I just wanted to acknowledge her. She's one of our uniform law commissioners here from the state of Colorado, and she does a fabulous job on behalf of the people of Colorado in this chamber. And actually, I didn't know a lot about collaborative law when I first got involved in this, and I've become a big fan. Much like restorative justice, it leads to better outcomes. It's better for children involved in difficult domestic situations, and all around has a better outcome than going through the traditional lawyered up court system that we sometimes have. So I would also ask for a yes vote.
Representative Benavides. Madam Speaker Pro Tem.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You know, I have real concerns about this bill as it's currently drafted. The bill was first brought to us last year, and it was to establish collaborative law, but it was for any matter, which included domestic relations matters like divorce, adoptions, and business matters as well. It was amended in the Senate to limit collaborative law only to domestic relations matters. But there is a lot of language in there that makes it extremely difficult to follow, that has to do with business contracts. And we had gotten, I had thought, some agreement from the sponsors to work on this, because this comes to the House, and I don't know if it has to go to conference committee. Then I really have to say I oppose the bill as it's drafted, since there wasn't, again, I voted it out of committee to get with that agreement in mind, because it is really dense language in that bill that goes way beyond domestic relations matters and makes it extremely difficult to follow what's going on with collaborative law with regard to domestic relations matters. So I urge a no vote.
Representative/Commissioner Tipper.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Representative Benavides. So as the representative said, essentially the bill was drafted to encompass every type of legal dispute that could be covered by collaborative law. So you think of contract law, business law, and as the representative said, in the Senate it was limited to family. and I hope I'm not mischaracterizing, but the concern was there are definitions in the bill that apply to other areas of law. So if it's narrowed to just family law, they're sort of superfluous definitions. I don't think that they are, that they take away from the piece of legislation, but I did commit to Representative Benavides that I would look into whether or not we could strike some of those superfluous definitions. I will continue to do that between now and thirds. I just haven't had the chance to do it since it came up faster. So I know that we're committed to looking into it. I'm not saying that I agree with you and that I'm ready to strike all the language, because as I expressed, my intent was to actually have this apply to a broader area of case law. And in the future, I think it would make sense just to strike the prohibition against family law, and then we have the actual infrastructure in statute set up regardless. So I ask for a yes vote.
Is there any further discussion on Senate Bill 143? Seeing none, the question before us is the passage of Senate Bill 143. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. Senate Bill 143 passes. System Majority Leader Gonzalez Gutierrez.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move the committee rise and report.
Seeing no objection, the committee will rise and report.
All right. I had to have a discussion about why there's boards holding up our window, but I think I know. All right, I'm just playing around. The House will come to order. Mr. Gregorio, please read the report of the Committee of the Whole.
Mr. Speaker, your Committee of the Whole begs leave to report as under consideration the following attached bills, being the second reading thereof, makes the following recommendations thereon. House Bill 1237 is amended. House Bill 1267 passed on second reading in order engrossed and placed on the calendar for third reading and final passage. Senate Bill 143 passed on second reading in order revised and placed on the calendar for third reading and final passage. Senate Bill 226 later until 5/3/2021 and retaining their place on the calendar.
Representative Roberts. You have heard the motion. There are 67 amendments. Oh, there's no amendments at the desk. The question before us is the adoption of the report of the Committee of the Whole. Mr. Gregorio, please open the machine, and members, please proceed to vote. Madam Majority Leader, how do you vote?
Yes.
Madam Majority Leader votes yes. Representative Jackson, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Jackson votes yes. Representative Judah, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Judah votes yes. Representative Neville, how do you vote?
No.
Representative Neville votes no. Representative Van Winkle, how do you vote?
No.
Representative Van Winkle votes no. Representative Exum is excused. Please close the machine. With 38 aye votes, 23 no votes, and 4 excused, the report of the Committee of the Whole is adopted. The next order of business Assistant Majority Leader Gonzalez Gutierrez.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move that we proceed out of order for immediate consideration of the conference committee report for Senate Bill 77.
Great. Seeing no objection, we will proceed out of order for immediate consideration of Senate Bill 77. Madam Speaker Pro Tem Benavides.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I move that the Conference Committee on Senate Bill 21077 be granted permission to go beyond the scope of differences between the two houses.
You have heard the motion. Is there to go above, beyond the scope on Senate Bill 77? Is there any objection to a voice vote? Seeing none, all those in favor of granting permission for the Conference Committee to go beyond the scope of differences between the two houses say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. The ayes have it. Permission is granted for the Conference Committee to go beyond the scope of differences between the two houses. Okay. Anything else? Great. We will proceed to announcements and introductions. It is Friday. That means Representative Weissman has an announcement. I thought it was a tradition, Representative Weissman, so my fault.
All right, thank you, Mr. Speaker. I guess I will keep the tradition going. So, members, it has been a long week. Earlier in the spring, we had cool days, we had moisture to help the early season crops grow, to recharge the depleted aquifers, and to remind those of us who long ago came to Colorado from eastern climes of some fond memories of the weather patterns of our former home states. But now we are in the middle part of the vernal season. It is getting sunnier and warmer, and the dawn is earlier and the dusk is later. And as we come into this part of the season, we come to spring cleaning. So this week's reminder is that as we are at home over the weekend, attending to the yard, the closet, the crawl space, the garage, whatever else we're doing, on the way home, before attending to those things, do attend to whatever you may have left in the fridge over the course of the last week for the collective good. It's getting better in there. I think we've seen some incremental improvement over the last weeks of gentle chiding, but let's keep it that way for the last month or 6 weeks of our legislative duties here. Thank you, members.
Thank you, Representative Weissman. Representative Sirota.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members of the Public and Behavioral Health and Human Services Committee, we will be meeting 30 minutes after adjournment to hear two bills, House Bill 1281 and House Bill 1279. Senate Bill 201 will be rescheduled for a later date.
Representative Sullivan.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Today is the 458th Friday since my son Alex and 6-year-old Veronica Mosier Sullivan were murdered with 10 others in the Aurora Theater massacre. 2 or 3 women will be murdered today by an intimate partner. Some of those actions will create another one of our endless string of mass shootings. Soon we will be talking about the scourge of domestic violence. I look forward to your thoughts and conversations. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Sullivan. Representative Luck or just Luck? Representative Luck and Representative Hooten, come on down.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. So tomorrow, everybody, is not only Blossom Fest, but it is also May Day. And it's not a May Day like, oh boy, May Day, the ship is going down. It is May Day to celebrate people and provide surprise gifts. So you might remember when you were a kid, you took flowers. I actually have flowers on my desk from this purpose. It even says Happy May Day on it. And you used to leave them on people's doorsteps, right? It was kind of a surprise Happy May Day. It's spring, new start. And so I encourage us all to tomorrow celebrate May Day and maybe encourage a neighbor, encourage a colleague, encourage a spouse or a kid. And we will encourage you before we leave. But first, Representative Hooten, did you have something to say?
Thank you.
Representative Hooten.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you, Representative Luck. I would like to join Representative Luck in wishing all of you a fabulous, beautiful weekend, which is actually the height of spring. Everything is blooming. The air is full of warmth and moisture, and we have some long days and weeks ahead of us, and I think this is a weekend to restore ourselves and to be reminded that everything old can become new again. So thank you all. Have a wonderful weekend.
Representative Luck.
And thank you, Representative Hooten, for standing up here with me and for encouraging our colleagues. One other thing I forgot to mention, tomorrow is Kentucky Derby Day, so be sure to wear your fun hats if you have them. But remember that regardless of whether you celebrate May Day or Kentucky Derbies or spring cleaning like Representative Weissman encouraged us to do, you are amazing and loved and worthy and adored, and we can't wait to see you again soon.
And I second that. Thank you.
Any further announcements or introductions? Seeing none, Madam Assistant Majority Leader Gonzalez Gutierrez.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move that the House stand in recess until later today.
Seeing no objection, the House will stand in recess until later today.